It's a journey to the front, isn't it? Marathon. Hello.
Hello.
Hey everyone.
Hello.
Thank you again for joining us all on this very sunny Sunday. And as promised, there will be time for audience questions towards the end. But first, let's start at the beginning of this collaboration. So for anyone who hasn't seen any interviews or anything yet, Sadie, why was Twiggy the perfect next subject for a documentary for you? And how did you guys come together to make it?
Well, like Twiggy, I don't really plan things, and I was doing a podcast. I'd done a documentary about Mary Con, and I was on Twiggy's podcast, and she said, "What are you doing next?" And I said, "Oh my God, I'm going to be unemployed from tomorrow." I was like, I suddenly realised, and then I said, "Oh, maybe I should do you. Maybe I should do a documentary for you." I was kind of just joking at first, but then it became a serious conversation. And because I'd asked
We went to lunch, didn't we, the following week?
We went to lunch, and we thought there was a lot of parallels in our lives, and I love research and archive, and I'd already looked into a lot of that period because of Mary Con, and I love celebrating women, and I decided to identify with Twiggy. I just wanted to there's so many parts of a woman's life that can be dismissed or forgotten, and I just thought, just put everything in there, because I was a dancer and a singer, and I wanted to show all the amazing things she could do.
Well, we've had similar careers actually. You were a model, and an actress, and a designer. So that's one of the reasons that I liked the idea of doing it with you, because I had been approached a few times, and for whatever reason it didn't work out, or I didn't think it was the right person. And it just seemed to click, didn't it?
It did, and so the idea came, and then we went for lunch, and then I'd gone to do a Q&A in Hastings, and a lovely lady from the BBC came up and said, "I loved your documentary about Quan. I've got some cash that I could give you from the BBC that we can invest in the next project, whatever that may be." And I said, "Oh my God, well, I just met Twiggy yesterday." And she went, "Oh my God, that's great." So we had the idea, we had the BBC involved, and then Phil Soho were doing the distribution on Quant, and I put it to Nick Hansen, and then I brought my friend who's produced it with me, Simon Jones, and it just happened within a week, and we started. So I kind of went from one doc straight onto the other.
So you weren't unemployed anymore?
No. And it took 3 years really from start to finish.
That's incredible. You never really, or you rarely hear about the stars aligning in that kind of way, especially with independent film, and someone saying, "I've got a bit of money for you," especially for a female director as well. We can't discount that. So that's incredible. In terms of this 3-year process, Twiggy, are you someone who has a really detailed archive that you've kept over the years, or were the two of you on a real fact-finding mission?
Well, you and your team did the finding. I mean, I've seen quite a lot over the years, but it's not something I do, get up to look at archive myself. And you found things I'd never seen, didn't you?
Yeah, we just, right from the beginning, we kind of went to scroll through everything and looked for all different elements and segments of her life, and then, with whether it be, the 60s, 70s, and right up until now, when we had so much stuff up until now, because she's still doing Vogue covers last week, and I kept saying, "Stop working, because I've got to stop this documentary." You've got to stop, because it's not going to be going on forever. But, and then I would say to Twiggy, like, "I'm coming around your house, we need to look at your photos, and actually, even though you got a lot of photos, you didn't keep loads of family photos and films, did you?" So
really, because, when I grew up with my mum and dad and my sisters, we didn't take many photographs. I think my dad had a little box brownie, and you might take 2 or 3 photographs a year, and most of them get lost. So I had very few old family photos, didn't I? And then when I had my daughter, and when I got married, and when I met Lee, we had more then, because it was the 80s and the 90s, but the early stuff was very few and far between.
And I went down to your sisters and met claim to be this.
They had more than me actually, didn't
They
they?
had more. But the thing is, and I've experienced this, when people want to look at your photos, you don't want to ever give them away because you know that you often won't get them back. So we were taking, scanners, and then the scanning wouldn't be right. So it is a laborious process to do all that. But it did take a long time to get all the right archive, the right photos, images, video clips, or whatever. And then you might have something you really grow attached to, and then right at the last minute, the estate of that person says you can't use it, or they're going to charge you £6,000 for something that maybe just a second of a photograph, or say for instance a Brian Ferry clip. I really wanted to play that out. So creatively, sometimes you're really restricted because I wanted to play that song out that she sings with Brian Ferry because it's so beautiful, and then they only would allow 6 seconds. So that can be frustrating, but then it just becomes the documentary that it is, and you have to accept that you can't have all the creative choices you want, and that's how it is, and let it go.
Sounds like a real labour of love, and we're grateful for it because the outcome is absolutely wonderful. And going into this documentary, one thing that took me by surprise was just the conversation about class, because I didn't realise it was such a thing at the time, that Twiggy was working class model, like where did she come from? And I suppose I'm curious to hear, both of you have had long careers in the entertainment industry. Do you think things have changed in that aspect in terms of working class?
I think so much changed in the mid-60s. I don't think what happened to me in 1966 could have happened 5 years earlier, for instance. But so much was changing. I mean, the Beatles had a lot to do with it, obviously. They kind of hit in early 60s. So without them, that probably wouldn't have happened to me. And then it suddenly became very fashionable to be working class. And I think it's gone on being okay what class you're from.
I mean, at the time Twiggy came along, people wanted, it was stale, the industry, they wanted something new, they wanted something fresh. So you looked fantastic, you were a breath of fresh air because you were funny and you were different, but they were prejudiced against you. And being working class, of course, sometimes there are a lot of prejudices, and there's so many people that can feel those prejudices then or now. And sometimes there's luck involved, and you just are in the right place at the right time. But it is a lot harder to, sometimes get those opportunities. But what Twiggy did show was that there is an opportunity to get those opportunities if you
go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
But do you think it is still that way?
Yeah, I'm sure. I still think there's people that find things very challenging. But sometimes the challenges, having those challenges there makes you work that much harder. For me, being just in my situation, being an older woman and wanting to change my career, that sometimes you're dismissed as a woman if you've had children and you've done something you shouldn't be. People don't want you to do something else. So I went back and studied film, and I kept going back and doing more evening classes or more weekend classes, or so it's just kind of, I guess, putting yourself out there and meeting people and just keep going on whatever level you can. But Twiggy did show people that you can change things.
Yeah, because I changed career quite a few times, but I didn't plan to do it. I didn't plan to model, number one, because again, going back to that time, girls like me didn't become models. You can see the ones before me, they were usually from kind of middle class or upper class families. So I would never have gone to an agency and said, I want to be a model. And also I wouldn't have fit their criteria. You have to be at least 5'8", and I'm only 5'6". And I didn't have the minimum, I was smaller than the minimum measurement, so I wouldn't have got taken on anyway. So I was planning to try and get into art school and do fashion and design until that day that I met Deirdre McSherry and changed my life.
And you got there. You became a I did not expect to see Dustin Hoffman as such a contribution. What was that kind of process like? There were friends of yours, of course.
Yeah, I know Dustin. We've known each other for, gosh, nearly 40 years. Because my husband Lee Lawson, who's an actor and director, he did a production of The Merchant of Venice, playing the merchant, and Dustin was Shylock, and they did it in London and on Broadway in 1988, I think, 89. So Dustin and Lisa, his wife, and Lee and I just became really close friends, and I'm happy to say we are very close friends. And he very sweetly, because he doesn't usually do things like that, he very sweetly agreed to.
I think it was, I mean, for me it was, I wanted to have people that kind of traced Twiggy's life from the beginning. That's why, you know, family, you know, friends, and you know, maybe we didn't in the end do any kind of school friends or anything, but you want to have people that kind of tick the boxes going through the life and through a life. And you know, I knew Joanna Lumley would talk brilliantly about modelling, or Paul McCartney would talk about maybe the working class roots, and some people, so we'd have lists, but then other people I knew wouldn't fit into the documentary. So it's not just like you put all of Twiggy's friends and say that they'd be great, because some people were right and some people weren't. And a lot of people we did film and they didn't end up in the documentary, because it's the documentaries that's the most important thing, and they have to kind of support the archive or set up the story. So archive was important to me to kind of show the themes and stories, but you know, someone like Lulu could set up that theme and then that explodes from that.